You are listening to the Bright Life Podcast, all about ways to stay inspired, chase your dreams, and find more gratitude in the highs and lows of the journey. I'm your host, Jessica Johnson. I'm a business owner, a part-time digital nomad, a self-growth junkie, a believer in other big-hearted women, and am all about sharing tips, tricks, lessons learned, and encouragement so we can all live our biggest, brightest lives. You ready? Let's do this. The word is out. You may know that I am publishing my first book this month. I've been so excited. I've been trying to take you along on the whole journey on Instagram. My handle is at Hi Jessica Johnson. If you haven't seen it, I have a highlight where you can watch from the moment I shared that I came up with the book, and then I've been sharing little snippets as I've been writing it on planes, trains, and automobiles all around the world, thinking of you. And I am so excited. This has been a dream that's been on my heart for all 36 years of my life, and so I'm just really thrilled to finally get to share it with you. But I wanted to share because I know some of you have reached out and said you also have a dream one day to write a book. So I want to share what my process was like, a few things that helped me, and if this is interesting to you, let me know because I can go so much deeper on any of this in episodes, but this one I thought would be fun to share, kind of just a broad overview of what my process was, how it came to be, and I hope you can use it if you also want to start a book, but you have no idea where to even begin. So this was about 5 steps that you can follow. So the first one is to really just put the intention out there. You know, I spent so much of my life thinking one day I'll write a book. One day I want to be an author. But when I really got to the point where I was ready, I set the intention that I was ready for a book title or concept to come into my awareness. And not too long after that, I was actually on vacation of all things, which is just another piece of evidence that rest is so much part of the creation process. But I was reading a book and this idea just came to me. And so I immediately started opening up the notes on my phone and writing things down as the ideas came in. But I think that the real step there is kind of just getting clear that if you feel like you're really ready, put that intention out there and invite an idea into your awareness. I don't know how it works. I think we have a long ways to go before science fully catches up to this, but I do think there's just something that teaches your brain to either pay more attention or to synthesize information differently, but I do believe that that will help your idea come to you. So kind of let the universe know you're ready and just put it out there, I think is step number 1. The second one is to really just let things marinate. So I have another episode on this, and I kind of hate this term, but it is really how I would describe the creative process sometimes, where when I would keep this blog, so years ago, I used to have this blog and I would publish every weekday. And so I was constantly keeping notes about ideas and, writing down things that were kind of half baked and waiting until they were ready and felt like they could be a whole blog post. Because to be putting out 5 blog posts a week, you really have to always be kind of generating different creative ideas. So you have to be in that state a lot. But I started to just get this gut sense when some things were ready to actually be fleshed out as a published article, or when other things were kind of just this rough idea, but were nowhere near ready yet. Like my brain still needed to collect more stories about it, more quotes, more people, more evidence for it to actually be something I felt like I could turn into a blog post and share with the world. And so the book was kind of the same in the sense that you kind of have to let the ideas marinate. Detach on having a creative idea or an idea right away for your book, and just trust that you're getting things going by putting the intention out there. I think that's a really big part of it, is like creative ideas. Have you ever noticed when you're working creatively, if you get an email that is, maybe creates a fear response, maybe it's from like a boss, or you have someone snap at you, I don't know about you, but for me, that really pulls me out of my creative zone. I just feel an immediate shift in my energy where instead of feeling like flowy and bright and creative, it like almost sucks the creativity out of me to go to a different state that's more fear-based or reactive-based. So I think that that is just something to remember, is that if you're putting the pressure on your idea or on your book, you're almost siphoning your creative energy in a way. So don't pressure it with a timeline. Don't pressure it with having to immediately have an idea just because you put the intention out there. Let it marinate. Like, let the idea come to you. Let it hit you when it's ready. And in the meantime, go out and enjoy your life and your work and your relationships, and just almost have that trust knowing that it will come. The third part, and a related piece of this, so we haven't even got to writing the book, right? And that's the amazing part, but a lot of this is just kind of the allowing in the beginning. But the third part is to create white space. So give yourself time to actually come up with ideas and brainstorms, not in this super intense focused way, but in a white space kind of freedom way where maybe you are in the shower, maybe you are driving, maybe you go on walks. You have to create some kind of space for your brain to actually make those associations and come up with the ideas. Now, this might sound like a given, but I think it's getting harder and harder in our culture. I don't know about you, but I just feel like we are always switching from cell phones to computers to cars to, work to meetings to lunch at our desk and like to carpools and everything. And it's just like there's never a break in our day to just let our thoughts wander. And even if we do have those times, like maybe we're on a treadmill at a gym, we're watching TV, right? Like if we're on a commute, we're listening to an audiobook. We become so productive that it's almost to our detriment for being able to just be creative and play again in that way. So I think creating white space is a really important thing, where make sure that you are carving in time to your days or to your weeks where your brain can just wander and you can just kind of stare off into space and think about things and let the associations connect in your brain. Like I mentioned, I came up with the idea for the book when I was actually taking rest and when I was on vacation and I was sitting at a pool reading. And I know that's a luxury to be able to have a vacation, maybe not the carpool, but like on the car ride, instead of immediately turning on the audiobook or the podcast or trying to be productive. Maybe it's just like silence and it's letting your brain process. Maybe if you're going on a walk, or if you could take the chance to drive to get the errands done, is there a way you could walk instead and kind of just like slow things down a little bit to give your brain that creative space? I think that could be just so in service to that book idea and the ability to think of even ideas for your book once you come up with the concept. So for me, that's really become something I've tried to incorporate, is just not immediately turning on the radio in the car or the Spotify, not immediately playing an audiobook when I'm getting ready in the morning, not always trying to be consuming, but really allowing my brain to just have a moment to relax and see what it comes up with instead of being fed information. The fourth piece is like then jotting things down like crazy. So once you get that idea, this is what I did, and I'm so grateful that I did this without even really knowing, but I immediately started writing things down. I opened up a Google Doc and the Notes app on my phone, and once I got the idea, I wrote that down. I made a huge list of any potential ideas that I had for the book, and just really started making sure that I had them in some place. You would think that you'll remember the idea the next day, but you'd be surprised how many of these really newly formed creative ideas are almost just gone if you don't capitalize on them somehow. It's almost like when you wake up from a dream and you're like, oh, I'm for sure going to remember that. I can't wait to tell, my husband that the next morning, and then it's just gone. And you're like, what was I even thinking that I'd remember that for? Creative ideas can be a little bit like that. So if you are someone who's intentional about writing a book, you've put it out there, you are giving yourself some time to think about it through white space. Once you start to get little glimmers of ideas, go and write them down and just keep this running doc where nothing has to relate. It doesn't have to be something that you for sure use one day, but that alone is really going to give you this place to then, and step number 5, go and eventually outline it into a book. So for me, I had pages and pages of random ideas for this book. that then I could eventually turn into an actual concrete outline. And for me, the outline really looked like, here's my main chapters. That even seeing them started to give me ideas for, okay, do I have enough chapters? Is there anything I'm missing? Is there any other part of this that I'd want to add? So that kind of gave me my main buckets. From there, I could go and take all my random notes and ideas and put them under the buckets. So everything kind of had a place, or I'd remove certain things that didn't seem to fit. And then I could really go and start fleshing out like, okay, these go together, this doesn't. And then I had an outline that was much more polished that I could use to start writing my book. Now, you don't have to stick to your outline. You can move things around. I certainly did. I definitely had different orders for things, or I had some sections, in places where I eventually moved them to other sections. But it just makes the writing process so easy if you can sit down and say, okay, here's my buckets. Like, everything has a home. This is what I'm going to write today, and so on. And then once it got down to actually writing it, I just tried to look at it like a blog post, so I could write blog posts all day long. I do for my work. I teach other women how to do it fairly easily through a formula that's helped me in my career. And so for me, I would look at these buckets as this outline of like, I'm just going to sit down today and write a long blog post about this. And then the next day, I would take another piece of the outline and write another quote unquote long blog post. And piece by piece, I was able to put the book together in that way. So that was kind of my process of like, 1, set the intention, 2, like give it time, let it marinate, don't pressure it, it's not ready yet. 3, create white space so that you can receive the ideas and downloads. Number 4 is to write down absolutely everything that comes to you, create a place for it. Number 5 is to kind of flesh out your outline and just start to make the buckets and start to make a polished outline. And include little things, right? Like stories that you have that relate to your buckets. That does so much to bring your story to life beyond just like, here's, the ... what I'm going to share. It's like, do I have a story that relates to these things? Do I have a quote that I love about this? Are there any stats that relate to this that can really bring it home for my reader? And the craziest thing is, bit by bit, it just becomes something that you can't stop thinking about, and you almost have to put together. Like, the words just come out of you once you have gotten to that point where you have all your ideas in one place. It's like there's nothing else left to do but to write it out. And that was my experience. And I already have ideas for future books where I'm following this exact same process. I'm in the Google Doc phase where I'm just jotting down random ideas. And once I have put this book out in the world, I'm so excited to share it with you. Then I will start on the next, and then I'll actually start putting together all these random ideas into buckets and into an outline. And then I'm sure from there, I will just have this burning urge to start writing and actually taking it from outline form into a story that I can share with you. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know what other questions you have about writing a book. Would love to support you in this. It's been such a learning journey for me. I've really wanted to take you along from the start because this isn't something anyone, taught me really how to do. I went and collected mentors and courses and teachers, and anyone who's done it before was able to hear bits and pieces from them. But I haven't known how to do this. It's been such a learning experience. And so I hope it's just evidence for you that you don't have to know how to do something right away. The way you learn is just doing it and just figuring it out and putting yourself out there. And before you know it, one day you will have done it and you'll have the answers, and you'll be able to hopefully share with someone else on a podcast episode or in any other way. But that only comes from actually getting out there and doing it and collecting the information you need and just believing that you can do it. So I certainly believe in you, and I cannot wait to hear what you put out into the world. Thank you so much for listening in. If this episode resonated with you, I have something you are going to love. Check out brightlifepodcast.com, where you can download a free Bright Life Biz Starter Kit, full of the steps that helped me go from a 9-to-5 to starting a business, creating more freedom, and finding fulfillment as my own boss. I hope it supports and inspires you further. Thank you so much for being here, and I will chat with you again next week.